We're talking about how to start an LLC in Nevada, and what you can see behind me here is I'm casting from my computer. We have a couple checklists that we're going to work through on this video. But the one at the top is really important, and this is how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. Now, what happens is people that are setting up their LLCs, but they're not familiar with terms such as piercing the corporate veil, commingling funds, registered agent, or pass-through taxation. Or maybe they don't know how the LLC renewal process works, or they don't really understand what business licenses and permits that they need after setting up their LLC. Now, to understand all these things better, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out a little bit, and we're going to talk about what an LLC actually does for your business. And then once we do that, what it's going to allow us to do is work through this checklist to get your LLC set up for you. And again, the whole premise of this is so that you know what you're doing and you set it up correctly, so you don't end up with an issue where you might be on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars in some sort of legal battle because you didn't get your LLC set up correctly. Now, what I want to do right here is we're going to go to this drop down, and we're going to be talking about two things in this section. One is the fact that an LLC offers limited liability protection, and the second is it also offers something called pass-through taxation. We're going to explain these things through the example of owning a coffee shop. Now, in this example here, this is owning a coffee shop without an LLC. What you can see here is you have the business owner in the center, and on the left-hand side are their personal assets. That's their home, car, and bank account. And on the right-hand side are the business assets of this coffee shop. There's the point of sale, the bank account, the physical location, espresso machine, the lights, everything. But what you can see is everything is tied directly back to the business owner. This is where you can create a lot of liability for yourself. Now, if you own an LLC that owns the coffee shop, it looks very different. Now what we have here is we have the business owner on the left-hand side, and their personal assets are attached to them. And on the right-hand side, we're calling this Acme Coffee LLC, and all those same assets are connected and live underneath that LLC. What you can see in the middle here is a red division. That line is something called the corporate veil. Now, if you recall, piercing the corporate veil up here is one of the items we're going to talk about, and we're going to explain that through an example of commingling funds. So let's talk about that right now. Let's say that you get your business set up and you one day are being sued, right? What that attorney suing you is going to try to do is something called piercing the corporate veil. Now, let's say they do some research and they find out that you have been commingling funds. What that is it's when you don't get a business bank account set up day one and you start running your business transactions through your personal bank account. That's commingling funds, and that's a big no-no. If the judge agrees with the attorney suing you, what would happen is they would grant them permission to pierce the corporate veil. Now, what that means is this division between your personal and business assets dissolves, and that attorney can come after not only your business assets, but your personal assets as well. It pretty much renders your LLC useless. So it's such a small detail of just getting your business bank account set up right away, but you can see why that's so important when it comes to setting up your LLC and doing it correctly. Now, what I want to talk about next is an explanation of pass-through taxation. This is just here because it's going to get to tax time eventually, and you're going to wonder, like, how is this handled, right? Well, what you can see here is we have Acme Coffee LLC. It grossed $140,000. It had $90,000 of expenses, resulting in $50,000 of net income. The IRS is not taxing Acme Coffee LLC. What happens is this $50,000 passes through. It's also called flow-through taxation. You may hear it referred to in either way, but that goes onto your personal tax return, and the IRS is taxing you here. This is where it's helpful because it's a little bit cheaper if you're having your taxes prepared for you, a little bit easier. The LLC is a very easy and flexible entity. And speaking of flexibility, there is a mention down here. It says that in the future, you can apply something called an S-Corp designation to your LLC. So you still have an LLC, but you apply for an S-Corp designation, and that can help you save on taxes. And that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about in the third video of this series. And this is a series. And I highly suggest you watch at least the first 3 videos because you will be set up for success, not just getting your LLC set up, but making sure it's done correctly. And then also things to think about in the future and how you can capitalize on all the things that are afforded to you with the LLC. Now, as we move down here, I want to talk about the checklist to start your LLC. Now, first thing on here, this is a shameless plug, but get this checklist for yourself. It's completely free. You'll see a QR code on the screen that you can scan. There's also a link in the description below. And the reason I would recommend you get this is mostly for the bonuses, but also the glossary of terms. So there's terms on here, like this video here, LLC scams can save you a couple $100s on scams that are very popular after you get your LLC set up. But on the bonuses section, there's an AI chatbot here. And this is really cool because there's some quick hitting things like how do I register an EIN, all right? And you may not be familiar with an EIN. We're gonna explain that in a little bit. But you can even ask this specifically, how do I set up an LLC in Nevada? Or if you want help naming your LLC, it'll give you suggestions. There's a free charitable opportunity in here where you can get $20 to charity when you get your LLC set up. This yearly accounting calendar we're going to cover in a future video in the series as well, just so you understand all the dates that go into owning and starting an LLC. So highly suggest you get this. But then when you get the checklist, like where do you go from here? Well, there's three main paths that you can go to set up your LLC. You have the state website through Nevada. You have online LLC services, these like legal tools that exist out there. And then there's also the business attorney. Now, which path you go really just depends on your situation and your specific needs. For the purpose of this video, we're gonna go through the state website and we're specifically going to look at the PDF, the Articles of Organization for filing your LLC. But in the next video, we're gonna deep dive on the different options afforded to you. And I highly recommend you watch the next video because I've seen people overspend close to $1,500 setting up their LLC. And we're gonna get into like a cost calculator and showing you down to the dollar what it's gonna cost you for your LLC. But for this video, like I said, we're going through the state website. Now what you need to do is decide on a business name for your LLC. The important thing here is that it is a unique name that is available within the state database. Now the name doesn't have to be perfect because it is something where you could have like, it's called a fictitious name or a DBA, doing business as. These are things that you can apply underneath your LLC. So maybe the LLC is Acme Coffee LLC, but then you have a DBA that is called Espresso Yourself Cafe. So don't feel like you have to have the perfect name for your LLC. Your brand name is more important. But once you do come up with a name, there's a link on this document, the state directory link here. When you open this up, we're gonna scroll down here to Nevada. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna put your name in here. So thinking of, I don't know, Vegas, like how about the Knights, right? You got the Knights in Vegas. So when I search this, what we should see is that there are a lot of names with Knights in here, especially Golden Knights for the hockey team, right? Now, what you want to see is something where, let's say I just kind of jam out on the keyboard and we hit enter, or search, I should say. No records found with your search criteria. That is what you want to see. That tells us that that name is available. So once you have the name that's available, next what you can do is get started with forming your LLC. First step here, register your LLC name. This is like a little half step. This isn't actually getting your LLC set up. This is just where you can actually obtain the LLC name, but you still have to go to the next step, which is filing your Articles of Organization. Now there's a state directory link here again, and these bullet points here will explain everything on the Articles of Organization, but we're actually gonna open up the PDF and take a look for ourselves here. So this is the instructions for setting up your limited liability company Articles of Organization. Now, as we go down here, why don't we take a look at a few things. You have the name of the limited liability, all right? 2, this is the thing that I wanna explain right here. Registered agent for service of process. Well, what's service of process? If you get a service of process notice, that's basically that attorney that's suing you is letting you know, hey, you're gonna have to show up to court, you're being sued. That's what a service of process is. So the registered agent is a third party that handles important documentation and communication for your business. Now, one of the bummers of these things is they don't really give you a lot of great information or even recommend services for you. The state's not going to do that. With the online LLC services, they all hook up with professional registered agent services. And one in particular, they actually provide a free registered agent for the first year, which we're going to talk about in the next video. But the things that you need to know is your registered agent must have a physical mailing address within the state of Nevada, and it cannot be a PO box. And you have to have a registered agent on file. So that's what we have there. Dissolution date, most people aren't going to fill this in because you're probably setting up your LLC, not thinking of closing it down anytime soon. Management, company shall be managed by managers or members, check one box only. Now, if you are the person who is actually going to own the LLC and operate it, that's where you're going to go for a member LLC. Managers, like it sounds, you're going to have somebody else manage the LLC for you. Now, name and address of each manager or member, name and address and signature of the organizer, certificate of acceptance, appointment of registered agent, all right, authorized signature of registered agent or on behalf of registered agent entity. So this is where like going through the state website's a little bit like harder because like if you're doing a PDF like this and mailing it in, a little bit more difficult, but you can do it online through the state website. The problem with the state websites is they're not really well made. They can be a little bit hard to navigate. If you go through the online legal tools, they will kind of clump all this together for you so they streamline it a little bit better for you. But then once once you get set up, this is your initial annual list of managers or managing members and start business licensing application of. So the listing fee, that is your filing fee, is $150 when you submit your LLC to Nevada. But also there's a business license fee of $200 that is paid each year as well. So that is when you're renewing your business license with the state. Different states call it different things. In Nevada, it is a business license fee. So just be aware that you're going to be paying an additional $200 each year for having this LLC set up. So you can have the members or managers, if you're not actually operating the LLC, sign and date everything. The registered agent is going to sign and date everything here as well. And then what we have here is customer order instructions. So the name of the entity, date, return to, so obviously your address, and you're just providing your basic details here, all right? And then if you want, there are 1 or 2 hour expedited instructions here, but this is definitely gonna cost you more money when you get through the expedited services. With the fee for 24-hour handling ranges from $25 to $125 if you do want this done faster for you. Now, once you actually file the articles of organization and pay that Secretary of State the filing fee, what we're gonna do next is you're gonna create and sign an LLC operating agreement. Now, what an LLC operating agreement does is it's kind of like a situation where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Now, let's say that you have that coffee shop, you end up having 29 locations, right? And you end up having a partner in the business day one. The LLC operating agreement will highlight who the members are, what are their roles and responsibilities, and like things such as like what happens if somebody were to exit the business. When it's spelled out early on in the business, it can save you a lot of time and heartache down the line because you may get attorneys involved and be paying tens of thousands of dollars to figure out what their cut of the business is. So that's where an LLC operating agreement is very important to set up. Is it required in Nevada? No. But it's a great idea to get that. Online LLC services, all of them have a boilerplate template you can use. And if you go through a business attorney, they can dial it into your specific needs. But a business attorney is probably going to run you $1,500 or more to get your LLC set up. So that's the downside of going that route. Now, after LLC formation, you want to consider setting up an EIN. There's an IRS link here. Now, what an EIN is an employer identification number. It's like a social security number for your business. And if you're going to run payroll, you have to have an EIN set up. Also, when you're getting stuff like you're applying for a office space, right? They may ask for your social security number or an EIN. It looks much more professional when you can put that EIN on that paperwork that you're going to be applying for. So this is something that's completely free to do. Those online LLC services will handle this for you as well. The state website is not going to handle the IRS EIN for you, but just know that you can go through the link here to set that up for yourself for free if you'd like. Now, obtain business licenses and permits for your LLC. There's a really helpful resource here from the SBA. I'd recommend reading through this. But basically what we're talking about here, and this is a misstep that a lot of people make where they think they get their LLC set up so they can start their business. Well, let's say like you were starting a brewery. Well, you are brewing beer, you're distributing beer, and you're also potentially serving beer on premise. Those three things can require licenses and permits, and those can happen on the federal level, the state level, and the local government level. Now, what I would recommend is on the local government level is you can just call your town clerk of your city or town and just say, hey, I'm setting up this type of business. You can email them too, and just say, hey, what kind of licenses and permits do I need to be aware of on the town and county level? And then they can direct you to the right department, and then you can figure it out from there. The state level, you can certainly just do a Google search like Nevada Business Licenses and Permits, LLC, and go through the state website. And on the federal level, I'll include a link in here that it's really just a few types of categories of businesses, but I'll make sure that you get that as well. We'll email those to you when you opt in for this resource. It'll be in that email sequence of showing you like which types of federal level businesses require licenses and permits. But just be aware that that is something you should research. Again, the LLC services that you can get online, a lot of those will do that research for you and help you set up for those things. But that's an additional fee that I've seen ranging from like $100 to $150, but that is available for you as well. Now, what we're gonna be talking about in the next video though, is the different options for LLC formation. We're really gonna deep dive between state, online tools, and the attorney. This first one right here, I'm not gonna scroll down, but there's a cost calculator here. And what that calculator will do is show you down to the dollar what it's gonna cost 5 years into owning that LLC. Because if you go through the online legal tools, sometimes there's hidden fees that you should be aware of. So we're gonna talk about that. We have a star rating system, and we're gonna compare the different ratings of these different paths you can go for setting up your LLC. We're going to talk about why the state website can become a pain, and that has to do with domestic and foreign LLCs. We're going to talk about that in the next video. And we're going to deep dive into these different questions worth asking on which path might be the right direction for you. So again, I highly suggest you get the free checklist here. This is available for you, no cost. And then what we'll do is we'll catch you in this next video and continue the education and make sure that you get set up with your LLC the right way.